Hello and welcome to the 15th edition of the Lagos Leadership Conference. This is the very first time this conference, and possibly one of this nature, will be broadcast live in this form. Recently, Plus TV Africa joined UNESCO, an arm of the United Nations, in the conversation and global campaign, Next Normal. The unprecedented COVID-19 health crisis has shaken our daily lives and made the world begin to question our priorities, pre-COVID-19 ways of working, and how our societies are functioning. Lagos Leadership Conference is somewhat aligning in implementing the next normal, with Plus TV Africa to have this conference hosted live in our TV studios and combining real with virtual, bringing leaders within the continent together in a conversation on leading in extraordinary times. These are indeed extraordinary times, and it is a pleasure for me, the Plus TV Africa crew, and the organizers of Lagos Leadership Conference to have you join us on TV, via Zoom video conference, and social media live today. We are breaking new grounds today and leading the way as the next normal evolves and conferences of this nature find new ways of running with social distance compliance. On the conversation today, we have in the studio the convener of the Lagos Leadership Conference. He is the regional pastor of RCCG Region 11, also known as the Blessed Family. He is the pastor in charge of Resurrection Parish. He's also the chairman of Beraka Microfinance Bank. Pastor Charles Kpande, welcome to the program.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Good. Thank you very much, sir. Joining us via Zoom from here in Lagos is our state governor, the hardworking, resilient leader that has continued to push aggressively to ensure the safety of Lagosians from the COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Mr. Governor, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Aki, and thank you very much for having me this morning.
Okay, and finally looking to speak and contribute to this conversation from Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, is the Chief of Staff and Director of Cabinet of the President, as well as Special Advisor to the President of African Development Bank on Industrialization, Professor Oyebanji Oyelaran Oyeyinka. Professor, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
May I also quickly welcome our participants in our other studio who will contribute to the program, as well as joining us via Zoom from different parts of the world. So without much ado, let's have the welcome address by the convener of the Lagos Leadership Conference, Pastor Charles Kpande.
Thank you, sir. I want to say good morning to everybody. It is indeed my joy and my privilege this morning to welcome everyone to the Lagos Leadership Conference 2020 roundtable. These are indeed very extraordinary times, and you will note that we are doing this virtually at this time, and also this has provoked our theme for this season, which is leading in extraordinary times. We are extremely excited to have as our speaker today someone we believe has been able to showcase leadership in these extraordinary times in our nation, arguably more than any other. Our own Mr. Governor Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu, the Governor of Lagos State. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Bon Menebari Leadership Foundation, we say thank you for accepting our invitation to share valuable insights on leadership at a time like this. We welcome you and your team to this roundtable. We also appreciate very deeply our tested diplomat and great leader joining us all the way from Cote d'Ivoire, the Senior Special Assistant to the AFDB President, Professor Oyebanji, for this roundtable. We say welcome. I want to welcome all our corporate leaders, spiritual leaders, and political leaders who will also be joining us virtually via Zoom to contribute to the discussions. Finally, I want to welcome all participants in all the nations of the world. Everywhere, people are very, very hooked onto this. And we are viewing on all our platforms. We want to say thank you. I lead us to know that the Lagos Leadership Conference is our own humble contribution over the past 15 years to bridging what we consider the leadership deficit gap that has made our nation operate, in our view, far below the potentials. Our approach has been to provide annually a platform, as it were, this kind of platform, to our best leadership minds to interact and have a cross-fertilization of ideas on the Leadership Roundtable. Because of our time, we intend to just take on a few things on the video, but I need you to know that I'll just wrap up later with many of the thoughts that we want to pass. So once more, please welcome. God bless you.
Leadership is all about producing more leaders, not more followers. The journey of the Lagos Leadership Conference began in 2007 and grew stronger and bigger, inspiring and building a community of leaders at all levels of the society, the church, the family, business, and politics. The annual program, the Lagos Leadership Conference, was initiated by a true leader, Pastor Charles D. Pandey.
The Lagos Leadership Conference actually started in the year 2007. And we had Reverend Tok Young of the Cornerstone Church in Singapore. That is the biggest Pentecostal church in Singapore. Now, that particular meeting was meant to be a time of bringing together leaders who have gone through a season of national transformation.
In 2008, the Lagos Leadership Conference addressed the issue of attaining your peak.
The theme for 2008 was attaining your peak. The Leadership Conference always provides a critical forum, a time when corporate leaders and leaders from the public service were able to discuss on attaining our peak. We had such great men like Professor Pat Utomi, Professor Oshibogu, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, and a host of others. And it was a great time.
The Lagos Leadership Conference dealt with the issue of economic meltdown in 2009 by providing wisdom needed for such a season.
Now, if you will recall, the year 2009 was a very critical year all over the world. Year 2009 was the year of the economic meltdown.
The world needs another direction. The world needs another focus. We have been focusing on economy. That's why when it collapsed, we have collapsed.
The signs are everywhere. Job losses, bankruptcies, prosecutions, bank bailouts. Well, you know.
There were already foreign investments into Nigerian banks that came from outside, or long-term, low-interest bearing loans that were given to Nigerian banks to use as part of their capital base. And once the banks abroad started running into trouble, part of the first things they did was to call back their money. Every number of years there's a cycle. When it's at the peak, it's going to crash. Some people will make money, some will lose money. The smart guys know when to get out of the market. They were already, when they were offloading, some people were buying their offload. And therefore they were buying trouble. And worse still, if you bought it with your own money, the worst that can happen now is even though the stock market is down, you don't lose anything until you sell the shares.
Originally, we are told when you are going on a journey, know the number of baggages you are going to carry. The fundamental problem of the origin of this meltdown is living a false life.
There was an increasing shift towards biofuels. And so, agricultural products that should have been for food consumption were being, fuel was being used to produce, biofuel.
The aspect of risk management is very, very key in our organization. If you look at some aspect of our life that can cause a financial loss, we should try to assess and analyze them.
In 2010, it was time for the righteous to extend their dominion.
Now, year 2010 was the year when Nigeria was gradually making plans for the next democratic elections. And it was a time God wanted Christians to know that our dominion is not meant only for the church. Our dominion was to be extended right into the marketplace, right into government institutions. The theme for the 2011 edition of the Lagos Leadership Conference was the new beginning, new things.
Economic growth can only happen in an environment of good governance and visionary leadership. That for me is key. And accountability is a two-way thing. Leaders must be accountable to those they are leading. But those they are leading to must demand accountability.
Without training hands-on skill, you cannot come out of this dilemma. So what I want you to think of is this: how do we deliver hands-on skill to the masses?
We all need to accept the fact that each of us here present has an important role to play in reshaping the event that will redefine governance in this great nation. I believe that we are all leaders in our own rights, beginning from our home front to the various places that we cover our spheres of influence.
I tried to study management and leadership and then fuse them together. This study revealed that Nigerians are good managers, but we have a problem with leadership. So we have only one life to live. Let us live it well. There's nothing like reincarnation. Even if there's reincarnation, suppose you reincarnate as a goat. The first Christmas, they catch you and they cook you.
The Lagos Leadership Conference.
Integrity is the quality of being honest.
Even among thieves, they need an honest man to keep their money.
Your background is a function of culture, worldview, your beliefs, and your values.
You can fool some of the people some of the time, all of the people some of the time, but you can never fool all of the people all of the time.
What lives after you are the deeds you do, not the things you acquire.
Part of integrity is learning the art of saying what? No.
There are ethical boundaries we cannot cross.
Boundaries are not against you, it's to help you to harness your energy, your resources, everything.
When you plant your vision into the earth, people will be drawn.
What you accept will determine what people perceive. But only you know what? The reality.
The water that it needs to become the tree is not in the seed, it's in the ground. The nutrients that it needs is not inside the seed, it's in the ground. The energy it needs to grow is in the sun. So your vision is in several people.
There are two types of people that you will have in your life. There is the people that you have, and there's the people that you want.
When you are carrying integrity, everywhere you go, you smell integrity.
You must learn the art of speaking to the people that you want, not the people that you have. Because the people that you have is a club mentality.
What you do when no one is watching is who you really are.
The secret of leadership in any system is to lead by example in the fear of God and to build righteous leaders at all levels of the society.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on this program organized by the Lagos Leadership Conference with the theme 2020 leading in extraordinary times. This is still Plus TV Africa. Please encourage friends and family to join via Zoom and our social media to be able to enjoy the conversation we're about to have. So next up, our keynote speaker, he holds a first-class degree in engineering, master's in chemical engineering from University of Toronto, and a PhD in political economy of technological change and industrialization from University of Sussex in England. Professor Oyebanji Oyelaro Oyeyinka is joining us from Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you so much. And let me thank the organizers for inviting me to this, in this extraordinary time, to this conversation on leading in extraordinary times. I start by saying one or two things about the concept of extraordinary. What is an extraordinary time? An extraordinary time is a season that is unusual, exceptional, or remarkable. It could manifest in periods of economic, political, and social challenge. For example, an example of an extraordinary time could be a crisis, which by definition is a time of intense difficulty and danger. It's an event that is leading to an unstable and dangerous situation affecting an individual, group, community, or whole society and nations. The COVID pandemic, of course, is clearly an extraordinary season we are in, a crisis of global proportion. This particular crisis has resulted in the cessation and disruption of economic activities, and it has upturned structures of economies all over the world. The reversals in growth, as we have seen, is expected to lead to a significant decline in GDP, unprecedented social disruption, loss of millions of jobs. Indeed, economic realities brought on by COVID threaten the very survival of people, particularly vulnerable folks in the informal economy, agriculture, daily transport workers, among others. Now, in all of this, I want to suggest three underlying signs that tend to define an extraordinary time. Number one is a feeling that the ground has shifted under us suddenly. This is when a sense of order that we have and are used to is suddenly replaced by a sudden sense of chaos and loss of control. The second signpost of this period is the sudden realization of information and knowledge vacuum. It's a state where we do not understand the source and the magnitude and scale of this pandemic, such as COVID. The third, of course, the resulting social and economic event tend to lead to psychological crisis in the lives of individuals who are directly impacted by the stressful and hostile ecosystem of the crisis. For the most part, the normal coping mechanisms of normal lives will prove insufficient. The pervasive sense of anxiety triggered by this extraordinary result is a mental health situation for many people. However, also, in the lives of nations and individuals, a crisis point could also be a turning point. For this reason, it is made up of choices and possibilities for individuals and for nations. I believe strongly that we are at a turning point as a nation and as individuals. Great leaders, thoughtful individuals will seize the moment. In my latest book that came out March this year, I call the book Resurgent Africa. It's an advocacy for a revitalization of our economies. Leaders at this time must think not in small terms, but in big terms. We must have a deep growing reset of our economy and society to achieve a paradigm shift post-COVID-19. We need a reset. We need to reverse the feeling of dread and hopelessness, the collapse of the economies, and then we revitalize the Nigerian economy. Now, what are the tools of leadership in extraordinary times? Many of us here in this participating know about transformational leaders. These are leaders who are motivated by strong values, including commitment to a clear vision and mission. They focus on quality service and the empowerment of their followers. A transformational leader at this moment would put forward core values that is practiced both in private and in public. A transformational leader celebrates the diversity of a nation such as Nigeria. And very importantly, a transformational leader will communicate clearly. Let me just say a few things about these tools The first one is communication. As we have seen all over the world, leaders that tend to communicate well tend to have succeeded in stemming the tide of COVID in their countries, and I don't want to mention examples. A great leader at this moment must communicate explicitly with facts during a crisis, because unfounded rumors and conspiracy theories tend to surface when a crisis strikes, and all former reference points lose their validity and their cogency. At the onset of COVID, for example, there were all kinds of conspiracy theories, including absurd ones like the link of 5G network with coronavirus, among others. There are so many of them, too numerous to count. When social order is being disrupted, as we are seeing under this pandemic, leaders, for example, for those who are familiar with the Bible, you notice they wisely guide their citizens as they make profound social adjustments in their lives. Of course, we know in our country, there's a persistent distrust of governments, not just this government, by all governments, all through time. And it's very difficult to satisfy public craving for comfort by what governments say. Because at the moment, when COVID struck and all crisis strike, economic setbacks results and limit resources. The competition for the scarce resource, of course, tend to exacerbate conflict between social groups and reinforce their mutual prejudices. And therefore, an extraordinary time demands extraordinary leadership response. The second point is courage. A leader in this time must be courageous and not be paralyzed by fear and intimidation of the circumstances that we face. According to Nelson Mandela, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over fear. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. As I said earlier, Moses was such a man in the Bible. When he approached Pharaoh and asked him to let the people go, Pharaoh answered him. He said, "Who is this Pharaoh? Who is this man? Who is this Lord? I don't know him. I know not the Lord, and I will not let you go." In this kind of conversation, we have the dilemma of a leader in crisis. When Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord?" that has very deep meanings. How do you interpret this question? It means, and it says to all leaders all through time, were you really sent and by who? Is a question meant to test you and to intimidate you, to sow doubts and reinforce your frustrations and to reinforce your anxieties. So leaders faced challenging questions, especially in crisis. We are familiar with the story of Goliath and David. David had absolutely no fear of Goliath. When everyone around him was terrified, David's courage was amazing, even though he was totally surrounded by very fearful people, including kings and captains of the army. The third tool that a leader needs in this time is to commit people to participate, commitment. And here again, communication is very essential. By being truthful, by being straightforward, great leaders tend to commit their people to carry them along. The fourth point is to conquer negativity. Because all around you, including your wife, your children, you hear negative things. People will tell you how things cannot be done. People will tell you what you are not able to do. You have to focus on the positive at this moment. The fifth point is to expand your capability set. We have to embrace new and unfamiliar ideas. In extraordinary times, when old norms do not apply anymore, we need to embrace ideas beyond our own existing knowledge and information. Think out of your experience or your discipline. We are drowning today in information, but very little knowledge is available. The sixth point, and that's almost the last point I'm making, is companionship. What do I mean by companionship? Beyond your wife and children, we need the companionship with the Almighty God. David, Daniel, Nehemiah, Moses, all of them had very close relations with God. And you do that through prayerfulness. Whatever religion you are in, you need the comfort and the wisdom and the knowledge of God. In my 20 years at the United Nations, I faced several crises. I was in Geneva, I was in Nairobi, I was everywhere. And believe me, everywhere you go, you're going to face opposition. You're going to face crisis. People who don't like you for the color of your skin, or they don't like you because of one thing or the other. I want to enjoin us that today, we do as Moses did in Exodus 5:22. He said, Moses returned to God. When we face issues of crisis such as this, nations and individuals must go to God and seek wisdom, seek knowledge. And the final point I would like to make is that leaders must be considerate and they must be compassionate. Leading in crisis demand that we show regard for another person's feelings and their circumstances. Compassion means having or showing a deep sympathy or sorrow for another who is stricken by misfortune, accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate their suffering. Right now, there's widespread suffering and sorrow due to people who have lost their loved ones from COVID, loss of jobs, crash of business, fear, hysteria, anxiety is all around us. It's not created by the poor. It's not even created by government. But we all must empathize with each other. I close my opening statement by saying, this is a once-in-a-lifetime crisis. This is truly an extraordinary time that calls for a reimagination of a new society. We can choose to be overwhelmed by fear, reinforced by our own prejudices, but we can also come out of this crisis, revitalize, and have a resurgent Nigeria. Post-COVID Nigeria must be supported by faster growth. We have no choice. On Thursday, July the 10th, I was listening to the WHO Director General. He said, my friends, make no mistake. He was addressing a global audience, heads of state. He said, my friends, make no mistake. The greatest threat we fear now is not the virus itself. Rather, it is the lack of leadership and solidarity at the global and national level. We need strong leaders. We need transformational leaders. We need to build and rebuild our society. The old with their wisdom, by the youth propelled by their energy and innovativeness. I want to thank you for inviting me to this meeting, and I look forward to answering questions as they come along. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Oyeyinka. You raised a number of pertinent and very important questions. I'm sure participants are definitely waiting to ask you a lot of questions. I will say they should hold their gun and keep it dry. Our main speaker today has been waiting patiently to get a few minutes. His trained surveyor, holds a master's in business administration, worked in the banking sector for many years before starting a political career in 2003. I met this very unassuming, energetic, and resourceful gentleman in England in 2007 when he was working with the then governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu is the governor of Lagos State. He has shown remarkable skills in running Nigeria's most complex state and demonstrated exemplary leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Governor, welcome again, and let's have your speech.
Well, thank you very much, Maki, and I want to thank the organizers. I want to thank the provincial pastor. I've listened carefully this morning, even though these are very difficult times. The internet connectivity has not given us the grace to see all of the various years' presentation, but I could see very many distinguished speakers and scholars in that clip that you just showed us. And I can imagine how it has evolved over the years. I imagine that this is truly an atmosphere where skills and knowledge and experiences are shared, but more importantly, is also done, in a form and a manner in which lives are being won, souls are being discovered, and new opportunities are given to people. And so I want to thank you for this opportunity. And I also want to thank my Egbon, Professor Ibanji, for espousing very well said, all of the hypotheses and the literature around transformational leadership. I have taken notes, on all of the things that I also need to do, from courage to taking out fear, to communication, to conquering negativity, to expanding my reach, and to say to you that I want to thank you for the time you're spending out in Abidjan. And so what I've been asked to talk about is essentially around what has been our experience, in Lagos in the past 4 or 5 months or so. Indeed, it's been an extraordinary time for all of us. It's been an extraordinary moment for the entire universe. These are events where in January, starting the new year, nobody could have imagined that by half year, this is where we will be. This is how our new norm will be. This is how we will be communicating amongst ourselves and with our citizens. But the reality that we found ourselves is that the world has been able to adapt very quickly. And so for us in Lagos and in Lagos government, we do not have a choice. But if we step back a little bit and ask ourselves, how did we get here, right? So we know all the story around how COVID started in China and how different level of preparedness had affected different nations. What I would say in Lagos is that we were a bit lucky. We had started a bit ahead compared to other jurisdictions, even in the country. And we had set up our own incident command center 3 weeks ahead of even expecting the first index case. When that index case finally appeared on February 27th, we were more than ready to know what were the next steps, of the things that we needed to do. So timely in terms of crisis management, in terms of extraordinary times like this, I think preparation, you cannot be over-prepared, but in some sort, learn from others and just continue to, ensure that you have some time, ahead for you to prepare. Also, the other thing that also had worked for us is what we call experience. And what do I mean by experience? About 6 years ago, Lagos went through, an Ebola crisis, at which time Lagos was also the epicenter, for that Ebola in the country. And so coming out from Ebola about 6 years ago, we have also said to ourselves that we will be able to prepare ourselves and know, that indeed in future we could have pandemics like this, But what we have currently is certainly much, much more than what could have imagined with the Ebola crisis 6 years ago. But also to speak around the issue around the demographic connotations of Lagos and also our behaviors as human beings, So because we're subnational, right, and Lagos, he's the smallest city, smallest state in the country. In fact, it represents less than 0.4% of the total size of this country. It also, sits and occupy about over 10% of the total population of this country. And this is also where about 50 to 60% of all international travel of this country originates, and end up in Lagos. We knew from the beginning that Lagos was going to be, a major point of conversation, right? Early in the days, from January, February. But because we didn't have the rights, as into when the airports or the seaports or the border posts will be closed, we were working with the federal authority, and we were able to even start at those early stages with them at the various border posts, pushing our medical personnel at our point of entry, and monitoring and checking and ensuring that we're able to take data. But at those early stages, one of the things that had affected us, was lack of adequate data. And I will speak about data, further down in my speech in a couple of minutes. So our behavior, also affected, part of the experience that we've seen. It took a whole lot of time. It was just a very difficult thing for people to believe or to agree with government that COVID is real. It's not a scam. Government is not pretending. We're not just, saying things that we don't know. And I think Professor Ibanji also, mentioned it. It was just a very difficult thing for people to agree and to come to terms with it, knowing fully well that it's something that had happened in almost 100 years or so. So it would just become a very difficult pill for a lot of us to swallow. So it affected how we responded, at those early stages. And as we know now, the virus is what we call at full community transmission, at a stage where we know that it's in community and we're just managing, in the community. But what has been, our response and what has been our strategy, in the last 4 or 5 months? We're doing 3 things collaboratively together, and I call them the 3 C's. We're doing collaboration, we're doing cooperation, and we're also communicating well, right? In terms of collaboration, because we're subnational, we needed to understand and appreciate very quickly, we needed to collaborate with the federal government. the NCDC, the Federal Ministry of Health, and various stakeholders in that health space. So our collaboration starts from even engaging the private sector, how we needed to very quickly scale up the building of isolation center. What are the requirements that we needed? Getting, oxygen around all the isolation centers, getting ventilators, that were becoming, a global scarce commodity. How do we do all of that? How do we build infrastructure that we all know has been in short supply in our country? How do we quickly build those infrastructure within the timelines that we have? And so we realized very quickly that we needed to collaborate. We needed to expand, our reach. We needed to open up our doors, and let all of our various stakeholders come in and engage us. The private sector has been very, very supportive. COVID, the banks, and all of that. So everybody had come, with that opportunity to say that what do we need to do to help out, But for us as a government, one of the things that we realized very early was that we couldn't be meeting very early. So we set up what we call a war cabinet, which is about 7-8 of us who meet, on a daily basis, every other day at the minimum. But at least we're able to carry ourselves along, and also meeting with all of the security operatives, which are at various levels, various stakeholders. And you can see briefing going on at every point, in time. So proactiveness, being agile and being informed in our decision making became a very, very important tool that we needed to bring on board. And me as the incident commander needed to lead from the front, needed to show courage and needed to show a whole lot of ability to carry my team, along. But whilst we had a very proactive and agile and informed team to continue to work with, consistently, we realized that we needed to do the next level of C, which was to continue to transparently communicate with our various stakeholders, communicate with ourselves internally, but also communicate with our citizens, because it's something that is novel, it's something that is new, it becomes something difficult, for them to be able to come to reality. So consistent and transparent communication became, an order of the day, in which we're ensuring that we're having regular briefing, with our citizens, and we're taking all of the skills and the knowledge as we go along. We're transparently, passing this, on to our citizens. We also ensure that we extensively, engage various stakeholders. There are various stakeholders, when we have, a level of issues that we're contending with. Stakeholders from the religious bodies, stakeholders from the traditional leaders, stakeholders from the market operators, stakeholders from the organized private sector companies. Lagos still remains the economic nerves of the country. So we needed to also have a very delicate balance between an health decision, between an economic decision, and between a security decision. So all of those collaborations, we were able to continue to, engage ourselves. I'm sure the figures are very out there. Lagos today, have over 12,000 positivity that were recorded. We've done almost 50,000 tests, in the state alone, in the last 4.5 months. We've seen that the virus in itself, has a preponderance of between 80 to 85% in the mild to the moderate stage, meaning that people will have the virus and will also get well. So these are some of the things that have also helped, our level of, attack, or what will I say, preparedness for the virus. Unfortunately, we've also recorded about 190 fatality to date, and we've been able to discharge about 7,000 people even in the community. So, so we have all of those statistics, and even as we speak now, not only are we working with our 5 molecular labs that the state government has set up, but we've also given access, we've given license to 7 additional labs, that are also privately also testing. So part of the things that had happened over this period is that, for us to be able to have a model where we can flatten the curve very quickly, we know that we needed to do a lot of testing. And if you test, because it's at community level, you will see positivity. But we're also not very bothered about being positive, the positivity we have there. But our concern is usually around a 10 to 15% that can get into the severe to critical state. And that's why we've wrapped up capacity, on a weekly basis. We've been able to improve about 8 or 9 isolation centers, as we speak, and we have capacity to be able to take about 1,200 in our various isolation centers. One of the also great things that have also worked for us, which I leading the whole team, is what I also call, the team effort. Knowing fully well that no person knows it all. There's a need for us to have, a team and ensuring that everybody has a role to play. From our various frontline health workers, ensuring that everything they require to continue to motivate them, to continue to encourage them, that those provisions are made available for them. I dare say that very early in the stage, we were able to continue to give all of our health workers, we increased their hazard allowance to about 400% of what they were earning before. So all of my 18,000 or so health workers are collecting what we call a hazard allowance. But beyond that, we have about 1,200, 1,100 frontline COVID-19 health workers. Those ones we're also still paying them what we call a special COVID allowance, which we try and make those available for them, on a monthly basis. So that whole team, we're ensuring that we put our best foot forward, and we'll continue to encourage them. We'll continue to have conversations with them, and then ensuring that everybody has a role to play, and understanding that it's only when everybody plays that role fully that we all can put this pandemic, we can put it behind us very, very quickly. Like I said, it has to also be a form of leadership by example. I needed to take the front role. I needed to ensure that every time that we needed to show that we're committed, I take the first stage of it. I was one of the very first person that had to put on the PPE, very difficult and very very uncomfortable outfit that you put on, at very early stages, and we needed to also show our people that, wearing our face mask is also something that we needed to continuously and consistently tell our people. The leadership has to be that we needed to lead from the front, ensuring that all of the things we tell our people, we are doing them. Ensuring that people wear face masks when they're in public, ensuring that we keep, social distancing in all of our events, ensuring that we slow down, the rate at which we have our civil servants come back to work. Even as we speak, we still have about 60% of them still kept, and we're gradually ensuring that we just don't open up, the economy, overnight, and ensuring, that everything that our people also require, we do it. I think Professor Yelami also mentioned something earlier, which is about a crisis position like this. We needed to show a lot of empathy. We needed to show, a lot of goodwill, for our people. We needed to show a lot of compassion, So that's why about 2 months ago, we started all of the palliatives that we've done over the last 2-3 months, which from our statistics have reached almost 1 million, households in which we've passed on this palliative to. But not just only food palliatives, we're also doing palliatives around things around land use charge, for example. So we've had to give rebates, we've had to waive off fines, we've had to waive off a lot of charges, around regular government fees. We've had to also stop interest calculation on some of the loans, soft loans we've given out to our citizens. So these are some of the ways in which we can, alleviate the very vulnerable in our society and give them some succor, at these very, very difficult times. And part of the things that we're doing, going forward is that from the analysis that we've seen, we realize that the 10 to 15%, of people that come out positive we needed to have a process, a protocol in which we take care of them very well. Part of the things that we're doing in all of our isolation center now is we're installing oxygen facility. We're installing oxygen cylinders and oxygen machines. Not the ones we call in the ICU. No, not the one in the ICU, but just to have an oxygen concentration machine in all of our isolation centers, so that when people come with respiratory issue, they can all be treated and they can all get, well. I cannot, stop at anything but continue to mention that stakeholders' engagement is important. We need to ensure that we cannot do it all by ourselves. So we need to continue to engage various levels of stakeholders. And that's why I'm indeed excited that this conversation we're having today has a lot of our religious leaders also listening in and being participatory. It's really an hands-on thing. And I can assure you that we're checking all of the variables, we're checking all of the numbers, and we're not unduly, holding back at ensuring that our religious homes are not open yet. They will be open, in the very, very near future. We know, like Professor Boyelami said, we also need to do, a lot of prayers. We need to ensure that everything that is happening now, God also knows about it, and let us, in our various ways, take all of these conversations to God and ask God, to come in and also intercede for us. As a government, we would stop at nothing to ensure that, one, we scale up our infrastructural capability. We're doing that. We'll continue to do that, even post-COVID, to ensure that all of our secondary health facilities, our primary health facilities, become top-notch and are available, for our citizens, to have access to, and to ensure that the lessons and the learning beyond COVID-19 are not lost on us, as a leader, as a government, and we use the experiences and the issues that have come out of it to better prepare and plan, for our citizens and be able to carry our people better going forward. I think I probably just want to end here, and thank, the organizers once again, and giving me the opportunity to share, a few of our own thoughts, a few of our own moments, with you, and to say that we believe that very, very soon we'll be out of the flattening and we'll begin to see, a drop, in the level of positivity. But I cannot stop but ask each and every one of us to take full responsibility, especially for our loved ones, especially for ourselves. When we're going out, let's continue to obey the protocols, that let's wear our face masks. Let's ensure that we keep social distancing or physical distancing, as it were. And let's just continue to listen to all of our health practitioners and the advice, they give us. If you have any symptoms, do not wait until when it becomes very severe. Get yourself a test, get yourself into one of our isolation centers, and we can assure you that you will be treated well and you will get well, at the end of the day. I want to thank you very much, for listening, and I want to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity again. Thank you very much. And I yield the floor back.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Governor. It's been a great pleasure listening to you. As we were speaking, one of the things that is standing out for me is the issue of communication. You will remember that even Professor Oyebanji Oyeyinka did mention that communication is key to how you manage your engagement as a leader. Now, a lot of Nigerians, especially people in Lagos, they're still of the opinion that COVID-19 pandemic is a scam. And this is very well known, especially amongst those who are below the middle class level. And even sometimes you get to speak with people who are middle class and they still tell you they don't believe it exists. What do you need to do as a governor that you're thinking of in this extraordinary time that must be done to ensure that people really, really understand how serious this pandemic is?
Well, thank you. I think it's beyond one person. It's beyond an individual. It's a total community. It's a total orientation of our society that we needed to do. And so all of us have a role to play, from our traditional rulers who we continue to engage, on a bi-weekly basis, to our religious leaders who I have continued to engage with, on a regular basis, to even our organized private sector, to our various, community engagements, at the CDC, at the CDA level, to even our local government chairman, all of the various levels of stakeholder engagement that we have in any community. We need to take it right down to that level. NURTW, movie, Nollywood society, everything in where you have, aggregation of people coming together. Every of the various stakeholders need to be part of the conversation. The gentlemen of the press, the media houses, so all of us must put our best team out, and we must continue to, every opportunity we have, pass on this message and let everybody know that these things are real. It has nothing to do with government. It is not anything that government has done rightly or wrongly. It is a pandemic that's global, and all of us have a role to play, right? We will continue to lead that conversation. We will not stop at it, but everybody just have a role to play in your own community, in your family meeting, in your resident association. Just continue to mention it. And we're putting a lot of people that have been infected and that have gotten well. We're putting all of them out there. We're putting all of them out there, and people are seeing it. They're talking about it, right? I mean, unfortunately, we've also seen fatality at the highest level that we can imagine. We've lost, honorable members in the House. We've lost senators. We've lost former governors, and it is it's real. It's everything that anybody can understand. It's there. So for me, it's for us to continue to have various levels of engagement and various levels of communication. To the extent that our traditional rulers, we had to tell them, call community meetings, in your various localities and pass it on to them. Sort of like having town criers, just going around, to push it on. That's how much we had to go at the macro level, just so that people understand, appreciate what we're talking about, and see. We've distributed millions and millions of face masks. We've distributed handbills, at model parks, at various places. Our schools are still kept back. So we're doing everything. So everybody must be seen also to be taking responsibility at this stage, in time. And we certainly cannot stop at it. We believe that, we are fully out there, and what is just remaining for us is just to keep this momentum, and we're believing, that we will come out of it stronger and better.
Okay, Mr. Governor, I know that you have very little time left because you have to go, but just before you go, let me ask Pastor Charles Pandey, what is the church able to do to back up the government of Lagos State and government of Nigeria to make sure that there is a level of enlightenment and understanding of this pandemic, especially in view of the fact that churches are locked down anyway?
Yeah. Yes, thank you, moderator, and thank you, Mr. Governor. We just want to let you know that every one of us are fully supportive, as it were, as to all we need to do and the reality of this pandemic. And we thank you for the communication, but just a little bit, we think that we believe leadership is influence. And sometimes it does appear that the level of influence that pastors and religious leaders have has been slightly undermined or underrated. And then the capacity to communicate has been severely limited by the lockdown, as it were. And that's why many of us were in a lot of excitement, hoping that when there was supposed to be an opening based on very established protocols, that we will be able to use that. These people we see in the marketplaces and everywhere. The church protocols speak to their minds. If you can't enter the church, that you used to enter without having to check thermometer. You can't enter without washing your hands and all that. Then your pastor stands up there and tells you, this has to be done. It's a lot more affirmative, this thing, which I think we have lost out. We felt that the pastors, the churches, have greater capacity, as it were, to deal with a lot of this. No church leader will be wise to undermine this. But we want you to look at all the variables and understand that because of our lack of capacity to reach them, many have been talking about online. I pastor around a community where I know that less than about 40% of our people have been accessible within the last the last 4 months. Now, and unfortunately, those 60% are the real vulnerables. As we talk of online, it is the people who can access television and all that. These guys don't have data. Many times, even if they have to look on television, they don't have light and all that. So they get mixed up. And the real persons that they see as their influencers are unable. I speak from personal experience. So we appreciate the governor. This is really why I love what he's doing. But I think that this conversation will help them to really think through how to go about this.
So, Mr. Governor, before I let you go then, let me ask this very important question, which I know that those who are people of faith, and I believe you're one of them, have been asking, when should one expect that churches will be opened?
Well, thank you very much. And I want to thank Pastor Charles, for also speaking frankly, and speaking to the issues, like I did said, sitting down here, it's really around the global overview. We had 3 levels of challenges that we needed to deal with. We needed to deal with health challenge. We needed to deal with economic challenge. We needed to deal with security challenge. One of my primary role as a governor, first and foremost, is the protection of life and property in whatever form, shape, one is able to do that. And the very next thing is that we needed to be able to strike a balance between economic, dependence, and also the signs of how the pandemic was ravaging. Because it was also a novel and it was also a new thing. There were no books that could be read. There were no postulation or experiences that could be shared by anyone to say that 4 years ago, this was exactly what I did, and this is how it's going to turn out. We've seen, internationally too, that each time there's an attempt to also open up something, before we know it, they also close it back. So these are some of the things that have informed, our also way, of reflecting on this. You would agree with me that, when we said we wanted to open them, that was when we also saw, a consistent rise in the numbers. And it would just, be irresponsible of us when you are seeing those numbers go up, and science tells you that you also needed to listen to them, that you just get, a bit reckless. And so I had various levels of engagement at the highest level of our religious bodies. And I knew what the preponderance of views were, right? What the larger part of the opinions were, right? I understand that these are very difficult times, and the reality is, even, from the religious perspective, they're very, very, very difficult times. You see how difficult it's been for you, even putting this program together this month. We've had all sort of hiccups, but we're resilient. I had to stay back. You had to keep on trudging on until when we got it right, and we're able to fix it. It's also the same kind of resilience that we're talking about, right? The time that we've had to stay, behind is not up to what is remaining for us to just make the bend and come out of it. What we have stayed back on, it's so long a time that what is remaining for us to make that remainder of sacrifice is just a little more. So what the strategy around the science of it is to slow down the spread. Slowing down the spread is to reduce the amount of contact people need to have. For the past 5 months, I've been paying 65 to 70% of my entire 200,000 workforce. I've been paying their salary, not minding how much it's costing us I've been paying their salary and I've been asking them to stay back at home, just so that I don't have 15, 10 or 5 people coming together in an office and they carry these things back home. That's how you can slow down. The slowing down concept is to ensure that people reduce, contact, and people reduce the ability for them to, and it's a movement, and it should just have an head movement, and it will blow, overall. So, I want to thank, our religious leaders for understanding, that we are the epicenter, for understanding that what happens in some other part of the country is completely different from what happens in Lagos. And that's why I started by also giving the demography. Lagos represents 0.4% of the landmass of this country, 0.4%. And of that 0.4%, 1/3 of it is water. So on a landmass of about 0.27%, you have over 10% of the population. So it is phenomenal. It is unimaginable, the amount of the demographic things that we're talking about. And we're saying that every of our stakeholder that we can pull back, that we can speak to, right? They are the ones that have the opportunity for us to carry along and be able to slow down the spread. That's all we're communicating. That's all we're asking for. Once the slowdown is achieved, you will be able to flatten it very quickly, and the rate of infection will be slowed, the rate of positivity will be slowed down, and by extension, the rate of fatality will also be slowed down. Once all that is happening, right, we'll all get back to life. I mean, you said it will never, this is the first time anybody in 100 years is witnessing it. So something also needs to give. Something needs to give the way we worship. Something needs to give the way we relate to ourselves. Something needs to give the way so it's just very, very difficult time. And you said it, that is the topic we're dealing with in very, very uncharted waters. So it cannot be business as usual. It cannot be the same thing. If it demands that we carry our bell and sing and tell these people what we need to tell them, we will do that. I understand and I appreciate that religious leaders are major influencers. There's no doubt about that, right? But what we're saying is that let's design different modes of communicating this and to ensure that people understand and appreciate this. And I think the very last question you asked me is, when is this big when, right? I will listen to all of the various stakeholders, and we'll make an announcement in another week or two, less than 2 weeks, a week or two, once we see that the prognosis are better for us, and probably before the end of the month or early next one or something, we will be able to see that the full protocols of coming to worship together will come back very soon. Thank you very much.
Mr. Governor, one guest is in the other studio, and we did promise that we will try and get at least one person who's in the studio to ask one question. So I'll let the gentleman ask his question, your name, and very quickly, keep it short, not more than 1 minute. Very quickly.
Thank you very much. My name is BC Olowoyo. Thank you, Mr. Governor, for all that you have said. My question relates to the traffic situation in Lagos. The Federal Controller of Works recently announced that repair works will commence on the 3rd mainland bridge from the 24th day of July for 6 months. The last time there was a minor repair on the same place, the experience could just be described as agonizing. The question basically is that, number one, Lagos, like you have rightly mentioned, is bounded by a lot of water bodies. Where is the place of water transportation? And perhaps the other question is, why was this not deliberately planned for during the lockdown so that the timing can be reduced? Because we can anticipate the level of the agony that the people will go through once this starts, especially recognizing that part of the business of government is the welfare of the people. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olonio. Thank you very much for your observation. I think the very first thing to say is government has a responsibility to ensure that all of its assets, are kept, working for the people, right? And so there are planned maintenance schedule, especially for a 10-kilometer bridge like the 3rd mainland bridge, right? But so your second question was around So why did we not plan that during the lockdown, right? So in January or February, nobody knew that in July there will still be a lockdown. So we didn't have the periscope or the view, to know that this lockdown or this virus were going to be on, for 6 months. Everybody thought we're running a sprint before we all realized it was a marathon. And so because there was no previous experience anywhere, right, nobody could have guessed to say that in 2 months we will be out of it. That's one. Secondly, when you also have a national lockdown, right, it will be unfair to now risk the life of those construction workers, and say that some other people are better safe, right, and that so these families must go out and do the repairs because there are no traffic on it. And so you just go out there and deal with it. Nobody knew where it was coming from. Nobody knew what were the prognosis. Everybody were learning it, right? So, and we certainly could not throw some other person's family, on the line and say to them, you go on the bridge, 50 of you or 500 of you, go fix the bridge. All of the other people will work. And there's nothing, they certainly cannot be doing that work with PPE on. It's a construction site, so they will not be wearing PPEs, and making it look like that. And so, in February, nobody knew that this is what will be turning out in July, right? But we've all learned, or we're learning from it, and we've seen that, the strategy of thinking it was a sprint, will not work. Now it's a marathon. And so all of the things needed to happen. So knowing fully well that it's going to be with us for a while, and vaccines and all of the things people are saying, so we said, well, we need to now be able to do some things that we had pushed forward, so we're pushed behind and we haven't done, which is like a maintenance, a major maintenance of the third mainland bridge. So the other part of it is that the parts, there are some rubbers, the raw material for the third mainland bridge have a shelf life, meaning they have an expiry date. So if we also say that, no, this is also not a good time, let's wait till next year, what will happen is all of those materials will expire and they will become useless and not be used for the purpose for which they wanted to use them for. That's the second thing. The third point is also that you never know when an emergency would happen. Just this morning at 5 a.m., I was woken, there was a building collapse in Lagos Island. Going to bed at 3 a.m. earlier today, I didn't know that I would be woken up at 5:30 again for somebody to say to me that there are 15 people in a building, it's collapsed because it's raining and we needed to get an emergency. That's what my 24 hours looks like, right? And so we needed to get up at 5:30 this morning again and go rescue citizens. So if we do not take those measures, right, that was about 3 months ago when we had a shift on the construction on Eko Bridge. If you climb from Alaka, there was a shift. This is a bridge that we've had on for 30 years, right? The thing just went down by less than 0.3 of a meter. And the effect of it is that you can lose that entire bridge if you don't fix what you needed to fix. And we need to shut that one down. The 10-kilometer third mainland bridge is on water. There's so many things that are happening underneath the water. There's so many things that are happening underneath the concrete, right, that are regular routine maintenance that probably happens every 3 years or every 4 years. That's the time for that now to be done again. Very unfortunate, right, but it's also within the pandemic, right? But like I've explained, because all of the materials they're using have a shelf life, they needed to do it. And they said to us, Mr. Governor, if you don't allow us to do it, if anything happens, then you have yourself to blame. And so what we said is that we will not close the entire third mainland bridge. It will be a partial closure, and what we're going to be doing is to manage traffic. And we've said that people that have priorities will be traffic in the mornings coming into Lagos from the mainland, and in the evening it will be the same thing. Priorities will be given to people from Lagos going back to the mainland. That's how we're going to be doing it. And in 3 months' time, they'll switch over to the other side and they'll be able to fix it. I think you all know that it's rather late than be sorry. I mean, we will not sit back and now let a critical asset like third mainland bridge becomes where, we will take that risk and lose out on it. But your last observation was, so what happens to water transportation and what do we need to do? And I cannot, but I mean, thank you for that observation. And I'll say to you that in January this year, we launched 14 ferry boats, large ferry, January this year, I think it was January 4th or 5th, we launched 14 high-capacity ferries, 80-seater, 70-seater, 60, 40, and I think the last is 30-seater, in various capacities like that. Why did we do that? We needed to use ourselves as a test, as a stimulus for the private sector to understand and appreciate that, we also can make investment in water transportation. As we speak, we're dredging about 5-6 other channels again. As we speak, we're constructing about 7 ferry terminals as we speak, that will have approvals for in various parts of Lagos, from Ijede to 1 or 2 in Badagry, to Liverpool, to Coconut in Apapa, we'll finish the one in Baduri. So the private sector have been saying that they want to participate in water transportation, but nobody is making investment. And why are they not making investment? It's because for water transportation, it's always a one-directional traffic. When you carry people from Ijede and you bring them to Falon, on your return journey is always empty. So they needed to charge a lot more money. And we said, okay, we will use ourselves as a litmus, as a test case. We will make that investment for it so that the private sector could understand and appreciate what needs to be done, and we'll be able to build the model, together, right? And so that's what we've done, right? And that's one of the things that we're using ourselves as catalysts so that we see the private sector also coming into it. And what we're doing as a solution to traffic management in Lagos is a comprehensive internodal transportation model that takes care of not only the road, which indeed consider about 90% of our movement right now, unfortunately, but also to use the rail and also to use the waterways. I'm sure you know that we're building the blue line, and very soon we're also constructing the red line. Once we were able to do these two within the administration, within the next 2.5 to 3 years before we finish our own time in government, we're believing that not only will we be moving about 2 to 3 million people on a daily basis on those 2 lines, we're also ensuring that we'll push a lot of investment in the waterways. And to do the waterways is do the channelization, because they will always continue to silt. These are big bodies of water. You need to continue to dredge and have the pathways of water and build proper jetties for people to embark and to disembark. And so these are some of the comprehensive things we're doing in that space. But I want to appreciate you for the question, and I want to use this opportunity to plead with our citizens that, we will do everything to ensure that, the difficult moment during the maintenance of the Third Mainland Bridge, are managed comprehensively with traffic management. And part of the conversation too is that if you need not make those journeys, look for other means, of transacting your business. I mean, we just have to be very creative. We just have to be very, very innovative and know that these are critical assets that must be maintained and managed at difficult times, even as we are right now. Thank you.
Very, very much. We know that your time is very precious, but I'll ask you 1 or 2 quick-fire questions. Are we flattening the curve, Mr. Governor? Are we anywhere near flattening the curve in Lagos State?
Well, yes, we're looking at the model, right? The numbers, because we've also increased the capacity to test. We've given 7 additional private labs the abilities for them to test. Let me explain, before I go, so that people understand this very well. There's a difference between having to test and wanting to test, right? Somebody can have the virus. Somebody can have an exposure to somebody that has the virus. Somebody can have been in contact that have developed the virus. That person needs to be tested. Needs to be tested because maybe a particular member of your family have contracted the virus or you've been exposed to someone. So you want to just quickly be sure that you are not exposed. So you will need to be tested, and all of our facilities are available for you. However, there's also a category of people that says they want to be tested. Wanting to be tested does not have, it has not been exposed. He has not said he has any symptoms. Maybe, for example, an organization wants to open up his office and he says, all my 200 staff, I just want to test them. That's a want to test. They just want to show up, and we're providing opportunity for them. Or you want to travel, you want to do a journey to another state, or you want to do an international journey, and says, okay, you just have to test it. So we provided opportunity for them. So that's why we've been able to decentralize, and bring in about 7 private labs as well that we're controlling centrally to manage all the data coming out from them, so that if you just want to, for curiosity's sake, because your organization says all of you should go and test, you have the opportunity to also go and get tested there, whilst not clogging the have to test, who either have been exposed to somebody that has a positivity, right, or himself feels the symptoms, of the positivity. So because of the level of testing that we're doing now, right, and the capacity that we've developed, right, we are wrapping up the testing. And once you wrap up the testing, that's what is going to help you to know how well the virus is moving. And I think we're just explaining this to our citizens for them to know. When you wrap it, that's what happens everywhere. When you wrap it up so very quickly, it will be able to flush out, and you will know that, fine, you've been able to flatten it very, very quickly. We're believing that before the end of this month, given the numbers that we'll see, we'll know if the flat is truly, really flat out, and we'll begin to see, the curve coming down.
Thank you very much for being a part of this conversation. The conversation will continue, but we must say a big thank you to the governor of Lagos State and the man who is the incident commander for the COVID-19 pandemic in Lagos. And we wish you the very best, and we pray that this pandemic will go so that we can get the next normal, as UNESCO is being proposing we should look at.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we take a short break. When we come back, the conversation continues. Please don't go away. Thank you for staying with us, and welcome back. So we now we go straight into our other studio, where we're going to have a presentation of the unsung leaders. These are people who have done exceptionally well within their community. They've invested their time, resources, and energy into doing something for the community where they live. So we're now being joined by the Commissioner for Women Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Mrs. Dada, and of course, Pastor Mrs. Bola Kande, who are joining Pastor Charles Kande in the other studio so that they can do a presentation to the winners of the Unsung Leaders competition.
So we want to thank you very much. This is a very novel award for now. This is the first time we're trying to recognize certain persons within the age of 20 and 45 who have done something unusual, and they are uncelebrated. That's why this foundation on the 2020 Lagos Leadership Conference is celebrating Unsung Leaders 2020. And we have 2 of them, a female and a male. These people are being celebrated today, and it's the beginning of what we'll be doing annually. And we have some cash donation to give them to support what they've been doing in the various places. It's my joy to be able to present these particular winners for this time. Winning, as it were, the young man who has won as the unsung leader for the year 2020, Okikejesu Babarinde. That award will be presented to him, a 500,000 Naira award, and it will be presented by the Commissioner for Women Affairs and Poverty Alleviation in Lagos State, Mrs. Bolaji Dada. So on behalf of us and the people of Lagos State and the people of Nigeria, we want to say congratulations.
Okikejesu Babarinde is the founder of Camp Adventure Africa, an organization of young people reaching out and impacting on the lives of rural dwellers, bringing to them relief materials and fun at the same time. One of the most recent communities he and his team visited with relief materials and educational materials for children was Obake Village, a village located at the topmost of the Eri-Jesha Mountains, a 7-level mountain where he had to hike the mountain to provide them mosquito nets and other welfare materials. Babarinde has actively led an amazing group of passionate volunteers to rural communities, empowering them to take initiatives and have influence in their own communities, which is the core of the initiative.
You have shown exemplary leadership during this extraordinary time. And on behalf of the Lagos Leadership Conference organizers, I congratulate you and I present you this award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Also, will be presented to you is a check of 500,000. Congratulations.
Now, the second award winner is a lady, and they've done extraordinary works, which I'm sure you can check on it after on our website. And in the name of the young lady who has done this extraordinary work is Lucy Chidinma Wajo. And that award is going to be presented by Mrs. Bola Pande, the wife of the pastor in charge of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Region 11 of the Blessed Family. And so it is my joy for that presentation to be made.
Lucy Chidinma Wajo is the founder, Purple Star Care Initiative. Lucy started a door-to-door sensitization in the wake of COVID-19 in March. Lucy, a final year student, pulled up her entire savings, which included her final year clearance money, to provide palliatives to families in Mafoluko, Oshodi. The project was to curb the spread of the novel coronavirus disease by teaching young girls how to wash their hands. In May, at the peak of the pandemic, she led her team to a door-to-door hand-washing campaign and also distributed over 1,000 nose masks to women and girls. These women and girls also got sanitary towels.
On behalf of the Lagos Leadership Conference and Bomnemba Leadership Foundation, I present you this award, and I want to say big congratulations to you, and you keep it up, and a check of 500,000 for you.
So we want to say thank you. While we hope that the next year is going to get just better. It's going to be bigger and bigger. It's our commitment to keep celebrating the uncelebrated. Thank you so very much, all who have contributed, who have been supportive to make this happen. We believe that being our first time, it will get bigger. And we ask that all our awardees, they will put in everything to make sure that they go higher, that this award is just a stepping stone to greater influencing around the nation, which is what we are set out to do. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank the organizers of this award who has found us worthy to be celebrated, and it's really an honor, and I pray God continue to bless them and strengthen us to keep doing what we are doing. And I say thank you very much, sirs. Thank you very much, Mars. Thank you for everyone who nominated and made it possible. I appreciate everybody.
I want to say a big thank you to the organizer of this award, the Lagos Leadership Conference, and everyone who nominated me. This has really brought out a lot and encouraged me to do more and greater things. Thank you so much for believing in us. Thank you for finding us worthy. And I want to thank all our team leaders and all our volunteers and CAA. God bless you all for what we are doing together. Thank you. God bless you.
Congratulations to the two winners of the Unsung Leaders Award, Okiki Jesu and Ms. Nwajo. We thank you very much for organizing this particular event, Pastor Charles Pande and Pastor Mrs. Bola Pande. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a vote of thanks and just a few more things before we end the broadcast. Thank you and welcome once again. You're still on to Plus TV Africa, and the event and program today is the Lagos Leadership Conference's event, which is themed Leading in Extraordinary Times. We still have Professor Oyebanji Oyelaron Oyeyinka with us all the way from Abidjan. Prof, I guess you're still there. So, Prof, your closing remark in view of what you've heard from the governor and your understanding of how we treat leadership in this part of the world. What's your closing remark, sir?
Thank you so much. I had hoped to congratulate the governor openly. We had a channel of some work with them, which of course had been disrupted by COVID. And I'd like to say that actually when I was given this topic, the leader that came to my mind was himself and Governor Cuomo of New York. And some of the stuff I put out was actually modeled on their response and what is going on. So I'd like to openly congratulate Governor Sanwo-Olu right here. Secondly, all the 7 points that I brought out on leadership tools is very consistent with what he has done in Lagos State, plus more. And I think that something that I would like to close by is something that we have been actually having a discussion about at the Africa Development Bank. Right now, we're having a conversation with 3 countries or 4, Morocco, Senegal, that has developed a tool for test kit. We are discussing with Morocco. And recently there was a Nigerian from Sheffield University who have developed also an RNA kit. And I hear it was actually on television, launched by 2 or 3 ministers a few days ago. We have been in discussion with these 3 countries. We found the NCDC in Nigeria had tested the Nigerian test kit, the one done by the Nigerian, and found it excellent. The Pasteur Institute that we also discussed with as Africa Development Bank is already under production in England. The Moroccan are actually manufacturing their test kit. They are going to do the first 1 million in Morocco because they have the capacity. My fear for the Nigerian kit, and I'm saying this now as an individual, not as a bank, is that it might simply disappear. The same way that we have press conference and nothing happened. So that brings me to the point I wanted to make. How do you harness crisis-induced innovations in extraordinary times? I am confident that if we have a mechanism or some level of galvanizing the innovativeness of our people, there's quite a lot of innovation out there, but we don't have that mechanism. We don't have that tool to actually harness this. And my discussion in fact, it's been going on for the last 3 months, actually. And my fear is that these 2 other countries will overtake Nigeria, and then they will begin to export test kits to Nigeria. I would like to appeal to you, as those of you who have influence in Nigeria, to actually get in touch with the people involved to help to push this innovation. Because it's been found, it's been tested in England, it's been tested by Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, been tested by NAFDA, tested by NCDC. I spoke directly in a meeting with the Director General of NCDC, and he said it is an excellent tool. But as we sit here, it might simply just disappear. So this is my last word. And one more time, I also, again, want to thank the organizers. I want to thank you, Plus TV, for what you've done today. I know that, these are trying times for everyone, but to put this together for me, you have made a remarkable and significant move towards the new normal. And we hope that we'll improve as time goes by. And I look forward to having, any discussion with you anytime in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. We really appreciate you. We are very thankful for your time, and we'll take you up on that offer that we can always reach out to you. So we will be discussing with you because we know that you wear a number of hats, and you also have capacity to share knowledge and experience as a professor. Thank you very much for being part of this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, and on that note, the program is just about to come to an end. If you have missed any part of it, please go to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa, and you'll be able to watch every bit of it all over again and again if you wish to several times. You'll find the juicy bits of this conversation with nuggets of wisdom on our social media handles. So please do follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. But just before I go, we will take a vote of thanks. We've got in our other studio Pastor Remi Oluboba, Assistant Pastor in charge of RCCG Region 11, and he's the coordinator of Redeemed Men's Fellowship. Pastor Oluboba, please, just a very quick vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. I want to briefly thank everybody for being part of this program. Number one, we want to thank God for all He has done. He has made it possible for us to be alive, especially in this season. May all glory be attributed to Him in Jesus' name. We want to thank all our speakers for leading the various discussions. Our special thanks goes to His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, for that stimulating discussion. We're encouraged by his presentation. For those who have taken time to be at this conference, at the various locations in the world, either virtual or through other social media, we say thank you. I want to say thank you for all those who have kept hope alive in this season of pandemic, who are saying, no matter what, we are going to start strong. We want to say thank you to all our award winners. We pray that next year it will be bigger and the scope will be wider in Jesus' name. We want to also thank God for all the organizers of 2020 edition of the Lagos Leadership Conference. Despite the constraints of the virus, constraint of weather, I think they've been able to put together a very, very, very wonderful program. I think they should deserve a clap for that. And for our hosts of today, the Plus TV, we say thank you. And for all of us who have been part of this stimulating conference, we say God bless you all. Thank you very much. And see you next year in Jesus' name.
Very much. So on that note, just before we go finally, I remember meeting a friend recently who said that his birthday was just around the corner, but he didn't know that there was going to be a surprise party for him. And then suddenly his niece was spilling the bean and sharing the fact that, oh, my mommy is going to do this for you, but don't let them know that I've already spoiled the surprise. But I didn't discuss this with anybody. Today is the birthday of Pastor Charles Pandey, and I want everybody in the other studio to please just sing one verse of happy birthday for him on a global television station. So let's go. I can't sing to save my life, but come on, everybody, you can just sit down and sing happy birthday and belt it out. So let's go, let's go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. Many happy returns, sir. Many happy returns.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, you want to say your final word before we go?
Well, what can I say but to say thank you to the Lord. Thank you to Plus TV Africa, Kayode. Thank you for all the people. In fact, Mr. Governor, we're excited. It's been a very rewarding time. Thank you, Prof. Banji. It's just unusual. Everybody all over the world, all we want you to know is that the Lagos Leadership Conference is 15 and we are going higher, God helping us. And God is going to make you to become a better leader than you ever thought. Please get involved. There are all manners of platforms, and we hope that we'll also be able to get this into even the television media, some cuts of this, so that you can benefit. Thank you so very much for taking time out. God bless you real good. In Jesus' name, amen. I would have wanted to just say a word of prayer, because one of the key issues about leading in extraordinary times is leaders must pray. So please, with due reverence, I just want to say a word of prayer. Father, we want to say thank you so very much for how you have kept Nigeria, how you have kept the countries of the world, how you have kept every of our families up to this moment. Daddy, we acknowledge that it is your mercy that makes the difference. Thank you for your mercy. We ask for more of your mercy, and by your mercy, put an end to this pandemic. And help all who are taking decisions. And let us end well and strong, taking the lessons of this season, these extraordinary times. In Jesus' matchless name, we have prayed. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. And happy birthday once again, sir.
Yes.
My name is Kaide Akintami. It's been a great pleasure moderating this conference. And I'll say have a great day, and do stay tuned to Plus TV Africa for our other programs.